All right, this is a Fox News alert. Another appointment from Donald Trump. Former Florida Congressman David Weldon, who's also a doctor, has been nominated to serve as CDC Director. Yes, he's been a doctor for more than 40 years, an Army vet. More appointments as they come. What number is that? I've lost track. 4 during this hour? We just learned this is the 5th, I think, position that was announced. Marty McCary is going to be the new FDA commissioner. That is a great pick. He is fantastic. Yay, yay, yay. I am so happy about that one, given what
Laura,
we went through with
they're going to watch that
COVID.
House majority. They're 4 down now. 4 Congress people down. That's trouble.
Well, Marty McCary is fantastic from Johns Hopkins. Raymond, thank you very much, and you look good in black. This is getting habit-forming. Another Fox News alert. Trump has just named Dr. Jeanette Nesheiwat as Surgeon General of the United States. Joining us now, Dr. Mark Siegel, Fox News medical contributor and NYU Langone professor of medicine. Dr. Siegel, she is a familiar face on Fox, not just during the pandemic, but long before that. She was also a Homeland Security advisor at the end of the last Trump administration. She's double board certified medical doctor, ER medicine, family medicine. What can you tell us about this appointment?
I've worked very closely with her over the last 4 years, and during the pandemic, she's very dedicated. She's a very kind person. She's also made many humanitarian trips around the world during times of crisis, like in Haiti, like in Morocco. And I think she has a lot of skills she can bring to bear. And you know, Laura, one of the main things the Surgeon General does is they put out advisories, messaging, and I think you're going to see a lot of that from her, and that can go across the aisle too. Maybe this issue of food that we're going to talk about, the issue of obesity.
Sorry. Dr. Siegel, excuse me, it was my mistake on the Homeland Security advisor. I was on the wrong, that was wrong, so sorry about that. But she's a familiar face on Fox, obviously incredibly experienced, and has spoken so passionately about the trauma that families went through during COVID, especially alcohol abuse, drug abuse, everything that came about as a result of lockdowns and people not being able to interact with each other. She's also been an advocate for mental health treatment,
absolutely,
especially for young people, which I think is so important today.
And the last several advisories from the Surgeon General on Vivek Murthy on this exact issue, on the devastation the pandemic brought about on families and on young people, especially teenage girls. We're going to see more of that from Dr. Nesheiwat. Very exciting appointment.
And I think to your point that this is one of the top positions where communication skills, I mean, it's always important to be a great communicator, like you, Dr. Siegel. But she truly is an amazing communicator, making complex issues, and you both have that talent, making complex issues understandable without sounding like she's lecturing us, talking about what's important, and to the point of preventative medicine. How important is her experience, given what we know about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and what he wants to stress over at HHS?
Very important to get to people before they get to the doctor's office, to send that message. How do we get you to lose weight? How do we get you to be healthy before you ever need anything for the sick care system we have now? And to your point, her humbleness, or the way she speaks directly to Americans, they notice that. Nobody wants to feel talked down to when they're feeling vulnerable already.
Do you think she will be in sync with what you know of RFK Jr.'s position, assuming he gets confirmed? Will she be in sync with his views on removing some of these chemicals and additives to our foods, especially a lot of these processed foods? What is her view on that?
I do think that. I think that that's an amazing place to start with RFK Jr., because that's why our healthcare system's so expensive. $4 trillion plus we spend every year on health. And Dr. Nesheiwat is very attuned to that. She works out all the time. I know her personally. She's going to transmit that. Exercise, diet, sleeping right, and mental health. Key. And that is what he's going to be emphasizing as well.
I think I might have talked to her at one point about sleeping, because I've always been a bad sleeper, but I think I talked to her about that one time. She was on our show last year talking about COVID. Let's watch.
We should have been encouraging communication and conversation to help save lives, not stifle debate. How many millions of thousands of people whose lives has been upended because of the mandates, because of masks, because of vaccines, because of this lack of information. So we need to work hard to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And it's good to.
Yeah, the mistakes of COVID. And a lot of people don't like to look back because like we're forward looking. But her point was that if we don't learn those mistakes, from those mistakes, we're bound to repeat them, Dr. Siegel.
Hyperventilating on a virus without looking at the collateral damage it caused to everyone, not just from the lockdowns, but how we treated each other, the anxiety, alcoholism, which she's also talked about, on the huge rise coming out of the pandemic and hasn't even come down yet. So this is how you make America healthy again. She's going to be a very, very important spokesperson for that. And I do agree with you, in sync with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if he's confirmed.
Dr. Siegel, as always, thank you so much. Joining me now is Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Congresswoman, breaking just moments ago, Oregon Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer has just been tapped for Labor Secretary. We seem to be whittling away this majority in the House of Representatives with these picks, but your reaction tonight?
I know Lori personally. I know she's going to do incredible things for this country, and very happy to announce, obviously on the show, that she's just been given that title. Congratulations to you, Lori, and your family.
So right now, the president has picked all the top jobs for the administration. We learned about Treasury Secretary nominee Scott Bessent, and now the labor position filled, OMB's filled with Russ Vought, who is really the architect of the idea of how to take these Schedule F employees and basically systematically remove them from, the federal bureaucracy. That's scaring a lot of bureaucrats in Washington tonight. Your reaction to all of this news, but especially Vought, given his plans for the federal employment, which is a lot of people could have to be looking for real work.
Look, Russ could not be a better pick. I know that he's not only an absolute patriot, but he's very serious about cleaning up D.C. And part of the problem that we're having is, again, these deep state bureaucrats that think that they can outlast administrations and the will of the American people. And so you have to get new blood into Washington, D.C., from the secretary positions to the federal jobs. I mean, we just need a flush all the way through. So I'm very happy that President Trump appointed him. And frankly, I'm pretty excited to have backup in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and Charlie Gasparino, I think it was Charlie, who made the point that all of these picks seem to be ideologically simpatico. They're all supporting the Trump agenda. I mean, anything can happen, but that's what it seems to be. And working together when they have common purposes and common agenda items, where they all have to do their part. How important is that at the start of this administration that everyone is on the same page? No time to waste.
It's important, and it's also important that the people surround him have his back. We saw in 2016 that there was many blocks and also people within his administration that were knifing him the entire time. What I will tell you, Laura, is that the fact that the administration is united, the fact that Congress is united, I do have some concerns in the Senate that they will potentially block anything in regards to border security if we don't push mass amnesty, which would also be very wrong. So I'm hoping that day one, President Trump can get in, lock it down via executive order, and really forces Congress to do the right thing. And that's stand up for the American people, secure our border, and do exactly what we promised we would do on the campaign trails, back President Trump's agenda.
Now, Congresswoman, you will tell us tonight if you're set to be tapped for a position, right? Because we really like having you on the show regularly. So the way this is going is like we got to check with every guest on the show. Congresswoman, thank you so much. A new Trump pick. He's just nominated Russ Vought to be the director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, OMB, another huge, huge job. Trump says he did an excellent job serving in his role. In my first term, we cut 4 regulations for every new regulation, and it was a great success. Alex Marlow, that is a great pick. And again, Trump has mostly new faces in. But I think it's very important to have some experience in that White House with the way Washington works. You can't beat experience. Obviously, if it's incompetent experience, you don't want it. But he did a terrific job last time, and Trump is very comfortable with him.
Yeah, and this is one of these things where he's picking people who want to deregulate, who want to make things open up the United States for business, to make it so that this is where the whole world comes to do business. I have to chime in, Laura, on the Soros point also about Bessent, is that he didn't work for Soros' political outfits. It's important for people to know this. He made money with Soros. And when he had the opportunity to stand up against Soros and some of the efforts to divest his funds from Israel, he threatened to quit and take people with him. So he's got some stones, and I think that's really excellent. Vought's similar. He's another guy who's going to be cutting. It's a deregulation bonanza. That's what we're going to see.
And Charlie, the left is already going crazy because of Vaught's connection with Project 2025. Because, look, Project 2025, to be very clear here, a lot of their ideas were just classic MAGA ideas. A lot of them were just classic.
I mean, all of them. I mean, I've read, well, please don't make me read Project 2025, but I've read some. Who wants to read Project 2025? Let's be honest here. But, you know, it's not, this stuff is not insane. This is like classic conservatism, MAGA conservatism. It makes a ton of sense. And, you know, I don't know Mr. Vaught very well. I've listened to him. He's a really smart guy. He's on the Trump agenda. Listen, full disclosure, I don't agree with everything Trump says and does. I want you to know that I want him to pick the people that do. You need an administration where people agree with you. And one other thing about Bessent that's fascinating, he actually understands remittances and what that meant from illegal aliens. Can you imagine Janet Yellen ever going there? I mean, this is like, we have just traded up dramatically here. The Trump trade should be Monday.
Panel, always great to have you on, especially with breaking news. Thank you.
As expected, breaking news. President-elect Donald Trump will name Key Square Capital Management CEO Scott Bessent to be his Treasury Secretary. Bessent is the founder of Key Square Capital Management. He's a hedge fund manager who lead the Treasury Department. He has been really one of the finance world's most vocal supporters of President-elect Trump, and he has been an advisor, a key economic advisor to the President-elect and his team, talking about economic policies. He has suggested to the President to pursue a 3-3-3 policy, in other words, cutting the budget deficit to 3% of gross domestic product by 2028, spurring GDP growth by 3% through deregulation and producing an additional 3 million barrels of oil or its equivalent a day. He is seen as a key economic advisor, and now, after a long process, which took some time to find a Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, the hedge fund manager, is the pick for President-elect Donald Trump. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson is in West Palm Beach, Florida. Good evening again, Rich. This had long been thought that he was always in the mix. There were others, like Kevin Warsh, former Fed governor, who was said to be possibly a Treasury Secretary, but more likely now President-elect Trump's selection to take over the Federal Reserve when Jerome Powell leaves.
Right, and that was the Wall Street Journal's reporting that they would potentially think about putting, and that the president-elect had thought about perhaps floating the idea of putting Warsh at Treasury and then moving him over to the Federal Reserve in a few years from now. But right now, according to a transition official, the pick is Scott Bessent will be the nominee to lead up the Treasury Department. This is a major economic position, often running point for administrations, because at the Treasury Department, you're not only talking about just general economic policy, you're talking about tax policy. They run the IRS. You're talking about a whole list of regulatory issues that go through the Treasury Department. So this is a big pick and a big job. We have been hearing a number of different names for a couple of weeks now, and the president-elect, we had heard, wasn't happy with how some of the discussions were going, maybe Howard Lutnick going there, his transition co-chair. Instead, that pick went to the Commerce Department, and Bessent now going to Treasury, at least the nominee for the Treasury Department. Part of the hang-up, too, we had been hearing from sources, was an issue of tariff policy. A number of economists have criticized the president-elect for the idea that he wants to put tariffs on a number of items coming into the United States, not just on wholly made items, but components that might be assembled here. Bessent has embraced that. In fact, what he has said is that the U.S. should embrace Alexander Hamilton's favorite tool, tariffs, he says, for 3 reasons. He said Hamilton liked it because it funds the U.S. Treasury. Secondly, it says it protects American industries. But he says there's a third reason, and then that's that the president-elect or then President Trump can use it as leverage in negotiations. So he's a supporter of that. The transition team sees that that's something that the president-elect and then president's going to want to work with here, someone who's embracing this type of economic policy. And so therefore, he's got the nod, and this nomination will head up to the U.S. Senate, see if he can get it through. Back to you.
Yeah, he graduated from Yale in 1984, had a long career on Wall Street, obviously a hedge fund manager, very successful. He is gay. He's married to a former New York City prosecutor, John Freeman. They have 2 children, primarily lives in Charleston, South Carolina. Scott Bessent could be the first Senate-approved LGBTQ plus member in a Republican cabinet. Rick Grinnell became the first openly gay acting cabinet member when Trump tapped him as the acting director of national intelligence in 2020. But he has been advising the Trump campaign and the president-elect really for quite some time.
Yeah, he has. He's also donated $3 million to Trump and other Republican causes in the election cycle. He's called Trump a very sophisticated person on economic policy. And the other half of that, you know, we talked an awful lot about tariff policy here and how important that is to the president-elect. He mentioned it an awful number of times. In fact, can't count the number of Trump speeches I've been to over the past couple of months where he said, I've got a new favorite word, and it's tariff. And he's tried to push that concept, not only as we talked about leverage there, but as an economic policy, but as someone who knows Wall Street and who knows investing. And that's important, too, for a Treasury Secretary. It's not just the Fed chair that monitors markets, it's the Treasury as well. And the Treasury is so much more part of an administration than the Federal Reserve, which is very much an independent agency there. This really is a hand-in-glove relationship. The president needs to feel comfortable working with his Treasury Secretary on economic policy. You saw the first term around all the cabinet members that came through the Trump administration. One spot you had pretty good staying power there, and an ear he listened to an awful lot was the ear of Steve Mnuchin, who was right down Pennsylvania Avenue, the Treasury building and the campus right next to the White House, and was a trusted advisor for the bulk of that administration. So this is a pick that is very, very important for the president's economic policy. It's a huge component of what he's hoping to do in the White House, overhaul economic policy with a number of other policies as well. And knowing markets, knowing capital markets like that was also another huge selling point into this pick.
Yeah. And actually, the markets, just talking to a number of experts on Wall Street and around, there was this calming factor about Scott Bessent and Kevin Warsh, for that matter, about how the markets would react to this choice, a big choice for President-elect Trump. Again, his nominee for Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Rich Edson in West Palm. Rich, thanks.
But first, we start with Trump's latest cabinet decision. President-elect Donald Trump has picked Pam Bondi as his attorney general nominee just hours after his first pick, Matt Gaetz, decided to withdraw.
Quite a busy day again yesterday. Let's go to Brooke Singman with more on Trump's latest selection. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, good morning, you guys. So Pam Bondi served as Florida's attorney general from 2011 to 2019. She was the state's first female attorney general, and before that, she served 18 years as a prosecutor. And as attorney general, Bondi led efforts to combat opioid abuse and end human trafficking. She also helped recover more than $1 billion in consumer protection, antitrust, and false claims matters. She is also a longtime Trump ally, and he says she will, quote, refocus the DOJ to its intended purpose of fighting crime and making America safe again. Trump says she is smart and tough and is an America First fighter who will do a terrific job as attorney general. The nomination comes just hours after Trump's first pick, Congressman Matt Gaetz, dropped out of the running. This after Trump reportedly told him he did not have the votes to get confirmed.
Holy I didn't see that coming. I mean, yes, he was the ultimate troll, and people have the opportunity. They can freak out over things and respond. And if you want to do that, you don't have to. You better pace yourself, though, because it's not even Thanksgiving.
Gates congratulating Bondi, saying, quote, Pam and I worked closely together when she was Florida's Attorney General and I chaired criminal justice in the State House. She is a proven litigator, an inspiring leader, and a champion for all. And we are still waiting on a pick for Treasury Secretary, but the president-elect is reportedly closing in on Kevin Warsh, with the intention of him later taking over the Federal Reserve once current chair Jerome Powell's term ends in 2026. Trump is also reportedly considering appointing investor Scott Bessent to lead the White House National Economic Council. He would later replace Warsh as Treasury Secretary.
Well, the starting lineup is filling out and only a handful of positions remain open in President-elect Trump's second-term administration. You know, at this pace, we expect a full roster pretty soon. Senate Republicans, well, they promised to have Trump's cabinet in place for his first day in office. Confirmation hearings will begin with the new Congress in January. So, what trends can we discern so far from the choices? New Jersey Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew joins us. He was chairman of the Trump campaign in his state. Congressman, good to see you. Welcome.
Good to be with you.
Well, we just had the breaking news a few moments ago. Brooke Rollins, announced by the president-elect as Agriculture Secretary. She's close to him. She was head of the, or is head of the America First Policy Institute, which was founded in 2021 to carry on the Trump public policies, chair of the Domestic Policy Council in his first term. So do you see that he's picking people, you know, who can carry out his vision, carry out his philosophy and his policies in the federal government?
He is, and that's what a president should do, and that's what the majority should do. Look, there was a strong voice in America. We voted, and we decided that the path we were on was not good, and we needed a new path. And what is great about the people who he is appointing they are people that are not just part of the system. It's not the same old, same old. It's not just, Republicans and Democrats not having any real differences or not meaning anything. You know, sometimes people used to call Washington the uniparty with good reason. This is a significant change, a new focus, a new vision, bringing America back home for a better, bigger, stronger America.
What are the big choices? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, billionaire hedge fund, operator. He's seen, as they say, someone who could placate Wall Street, at the same time be kind of a disruptor and raise some eyebrows because he had been the chief investment officer at one point for George Soros. What do you see? Will he address the debt, and how will he address the economy, do you think?
Look, he's a smart guy. He knows where the skeletons are hidden. He knows what the problems are. And he truthfully knows how we've been misled and gone down the wrong track. So what he knows is when you have a vibrant economy, when you cut taxes, when you increase revenue, when you're exporting energy and have all the energy that you need in America, that then you will have a better and stronger country, and everyone will do better, from the billionaires right down to the guy breaking his back, working every single day for a union. This is an exciting time. And you know what's exciting? We haven't had a president in modern history who was willing to go outside the normal envelope of what Washington does. This is different. I was speaking to Bobby Kennedy just about an hour ago, talking about health. We spend more dollars per capita in health than any other country in the world, yet we still don't have by far the best infant mortality or the greatest longevity. We can do better in every single way, and I believe we will. It's going to be a bumpy ride, by the way. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to do it.
You talk about health, and you know that firsthand. You're a dentist, or have been a dentist, and there's some, doctors and others of your profession in Congress, and one of them was appointed head of the CDC, former Florida Representative Dave Weldon was in Congress. Of course, there's Jeanette Neshawat, a favorite of ours here, has been a Fox News contributor. She is nominee for a Surgeon General, and Dr. Marty Makary, who's familiar to our audience, nominee of the FDA Commissioner. Here's what the president-elect said about Dr. Makary. Dealing with the CDC. The agency needs, and the FDA, the agency needs Dr. Marty Makary, a highly respected Johns Hopkins surgical oncologist and health policy expert, to course correct and refocus the agency to, among other things, properly evaluate harmful chemicals poisoning our nation's food supply and drugs and biologics being given to our nation's youth, so we can finally address the childhood chronic disease epidemic. Dr. Makary at the FDA What changes do you see? And it's interesting because that announcement is addressing issues that you usually don't hear directly from Washington. You instead hear dealing with the industry and big pharma.
Exactly. And there's a lot more to healthcare than big pharma. Quite frankly, as a healthcare provider, I know, and I think good healthcare providers know, that healthcare is more than just how many prescriptions you're getting and what you're taking and how many surgeries you've had. Don't get me wrong. We still need prescriptions. We still obviously need surgery, but that isn't all there is to it. There's a holistic approach. What you eat, how you feel, what you do you exercise? Do you take care of yourself? All that's so important. Our kids, this generation of children, are the unhealthiest generation of children ever. We've got to reverse that. I believe we should bring something back, and I spoke to Bobby Kennedy, just like I said an hour ago, about it, the President's Physical Fitness Council, where we really encourage you to be healthy.
When you talk to Mr. Kennedy, I mean, what type of advice do you give him? Of course, he's been criticized for some of his vaccine positions. Are you concerned about that, and what do you see down the road?
Here's what I believe in. I believe in America. In America, you have choice. If you need a vaccine and you think it's the right thing for you, you and your doctor decide. If you want fluoride in your water, and I'm a dentist, and I understand the benefits of it. But if you want it, you decide. Not everybody should be mass fluoridated. That's what healthcare is about. Individual Americans deciding what they should do. It is not about what happened in COVID, where big government, almost like a socialist state, came in and forced us all to do things that weren't good for our kids, weren't good for their education, weren't good for a lot of people's health, and just benefited big pharma. That's wrong. We've got to change that.
All right, we're going to change America's health right now. I can't let you go because you are a dentist. Please talk about the importance of flossing. I get it at home all the time. I'm yelled at about that. You got to do it, because isn't there a connection to heart, or is there? Can you straighten that out and clarify?
I'm going to make a suggestion to you. Don't get yelled at. Just floss every day. It's a lot easier than getting yelled at. Secondly, you can tell by the condition of somebody's mouth and the inflammatory process in their gums, and if there is presence of infection in their gums, it also affects your cardiovascular health and your entire system. That's the point. This is all interrelated, and running string through your teeth is healthy. It makes your teeth better, it makes your gums better, and it makes your breath better as well as tongue scraping, by the way.
Oh, okay. We're getting healthy already, Congressman and dentist Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey. Congressman, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.